Hi, everybody. This is your friend Anthony Burrows for Life and Finances with Sacrifice and Service. Now, it's another weekend. We haven't had the lockdown for a while, but we're back in a full swing lockdown. You know, all the news out there, especially financial news, they are bad. There's doom and gloom everywhere. Businesses' revenues are down, I guess, except for security companies, food stores, pharmacies, local importers, and the fast food restaurants. Now, of course, the bleakest news are for hotels, because 50% of the Bahamian workforce are hotel workers. Another 10% of the workforce are affiliated and associated with tourism. So we have a 60% possibly workforce that's out of work. Banks are reporting bleak news also, except for, I guess, those who do the predatory lending to the civil servants. I guess they are still having good news. That'll be Commonwealth and POB and some of these other banks. Media houses are having a rough time because there are fewer ads and fewer investment in those cases. I understand that there are even some churches about to shut down because their members are out of work and there's nothing coming in as far as maintaining the church and its utilities and all of that. So, but the issue for today is tithing, saving, and investing the right way. Now, we often take for granted that everybody knows what tithing is. It's estimated that 60% of persons in the Bahamas under the age of 20 attends church once every 2 years, and that'll be for someone's funeral, wedding, something. Now, tithing, right? That's 10% of your earnings that you willingly give to your church, so to speak, which in most cases, and the root of it actually goes as far back as Genesis in the Bible, when Abraham met this priest called Melchizedek, and he gave him a tithe. So also further on in Numbers, it talks about the priesthood when Israel came into the promised land and they set up, the priests were not allowed to own land and things of that sort. They just had somewhere to build a house, a little something to grow some fruits and vegetables, and then have some animals. So tithing, you're giving. Now saving, consistent, deliberate effort to build / accumulate monies for a planned purpose. Now, in saving, you are accumulating and storing up. Investing, you're placing monies into any venture / again project with intention or hope of gaining a profit. So you're taking a risk with investing. Tithing, you're giving. Saving, you're storing up. Investing, you're taking a risk. Now, for tithing, saving, and investing to take place, you must have what is known as an economy. That's required. Now, an economy is the production and consumption of goods and services and the supply of money. Now, when it comes to economics, which economy comes from, you find the economists all around the Bahamas. You'd find them at central bank, government departments, offshore as well as private banks. You'd find them at BPL, BTC, and then the foreign entities that we have here, PAHO, IDB, the CDB, which is the Caribbean Development Bank. Then we have the World Bank, IMF, and other organizations. Now, you got two types of economics that they'll speak of out there. You have microeconomics, that's on the individual and the family level, which is supposed to be smaller scale. And you have macroeconomics, which is governments and nations, which is on the larger scale. Now, economists will say that nations and governments should handle money differently than individuals and families. And the thing is, these guys graduate from the top colleges around the world and they teach borrow money, borrow more money, leverage money. That's where you take money, put in the stock market, and you call for at a certain price, and oftentimes people lose. We saw that crash in 2008. And then they have this thing about borrowing on equity. And if you've heard some of my things in the past, you know I discourage borrowing on equity. Now, families and individuals are in financial ruin. Governments and nations, they are financially ruined. See, The practice of the economists is based on the world system, which is self-preservation, which preserve their jobs, and then the quid quo pro actions. And you can look that up if you want to. Time isn't going to allow me to go into that too much. Now, 90% of Bahamians, I always talk about this, don't have $1,000 in the bank after many years on their respective jobs. Here we go. We like to imitate our neighbors to the north. Most Americans cannot meet a $400 emergency without having to sell sell something or borrow some money. See, economists remains on a job while everybody else could run about and starve. And they remind me of something, which is a job that I used to be on. And when they said, hey, when I tell you walk, hey, run. And when I say run, walk. That's how the economists are. You cannot go on them. Now, take the quote-unquote economics experts' advice as a grain of salt and with a grain of salt. Countries often say to us, the wealthier countries, hey, pull yourself up by your bootstrap, and innovation, that's the way to wealth. Now we know the wealthier countries of the world got their wealth and started on 250 years on the back of slavery and 100 years of colonization. But that's another story. See, economics and world body organizations remind me of drug dealers. They give your product free or cheap, and afterward takes your life work along with your soul. Now, hold on, this is going to make some sense. Tithing, saving, and investing. Just want to look at some Caribbean data when you look at us in the Caribbean in terms of our level of indebtedness. Now, we see following these economists, Jamaica, they originally borrowed $8.5 billion. Over a 40-year period, they paid $19.8 billion, and they still owe $7.8 billion. Now, they have bauxite, and they have the richest soil you can imagine. Trinidad, they have a $10.1 billion debt, which equals out to their population $69,090 per citizen. They have pitch, and they have oil. Guyana, $2.63 billion, and they have oil and rich soil. Let's look at us in the Bahamas. We have a massive debt of $7.62 billion. We have massive fishing resources. We have massive amount of aragonite gone to bed. Oh man. Now, the Caribbean Bank, RBC, First Caribbean Bank, Bank of the Bahamas, they'll call you and say he has free and cheap money. But they put you on a road, on a treadmill for 15 to 20 years that takes you to nowhere but debt, and more debt. See, individual families and nations are under the water following the wrong principle and practice. That's the borrower is lender. Well, the borrower, is a slave to the lender. Now, and it says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. Now, let's look at the big boys' debt. USA, $26.7 trillion in debt. The UK/England, $2.76 trillion. Germany, $2.2 trillion. Japan, $11.7 trillion. And well, we know nobody wants Japan to rise back up because they were at war in the past with the US. They went to war with China, and they also went to war with Russia. But the fascinating thing is that Japanese as individuals are the biggest savers going. Tithing, saving, and investing the correct way. Now, tithing in the Bahamas is estimated that about 15% of church members actually give a tithe. In the general population, 1%. I always think of a story that my son mentioned when he was a child. His thing is that, hey, people make it appear as if tithing is just a miraculous thing that brings you money. And he spoke of a story that was told in church, a children's story, when a young boy wanted to go on a trip. But it turned out that he was saving some money, which was far short of it. And his parents said, well, did you tithe? And he said, well, no, he didn't. So he went and tithe. Turned out, long story short, when the father turned around and gave him the sufficient amount to cover the trip. So that gave my son the impression, hey, just throw in the tithe as a child and you're going to get these things. Nothing mentioned about living below your means or getting better understanding of wealth and wealth generation. See, most don't get the money handling and wealth generation because most persons are sheeple and not lifetime learners. And sheeple is simply persons following what everybody else is doing. See, persons who tithe tend to live a zero-sum budget. And a zero-sum budget is that you look at everything that you owe, you pay a tithe or surrender a tithe, you pay all of your bills, cover all of your expenses, and then nothing's left for savings or whatever you see. Now, if you're new to tithing and you have a massive amount of debt, then just start where you are. Just start where you are. See, tithing is personal. It's personal and it begins at 10%. Tithing, saving and investing the right way. Now, saving, regular listeners, you know that's my pet peeve. And saving, first thing you have to do is lay out a budget. Then you draw up a plan. That's the amount you're going to put away each week, every 2 weeks, each month. And then remember, each deposit to your savings account is a payment to yourself. Always pay yourself first, and then let compound interest work for you. And some of the places, I'd say the best places to save, I recommend 2 places really. One is the post office. They give you 6% interest, and the other one is credit unions, who will give you like up to 2%, as opposed to banks which kind of give you 0.0 whatever sometimes. Now, investing, well, not 0.0, but they're going to give you less than 1%. Investing requires capital. That's the main thing. And if you don't understand something that people ask you to invest in, don't go in it. This is how come people get caught up in all these pyramid schemes, because they wish to fit in and pretend as if they understand. But if you don't understand, then don't get in it. Same thing, someone came to me about some bitcoins, but it didn't make sense to me. So about 3 different persons, but I just didn't go with it because I didn't understand it. Now, capital. Anything that's used to add or increase value, of course, but it's not for itself. Now, a good example of capital, you got a bulldozer clearing a property to build a house, or a bulldozer clearing land to build a road, the garbage truck picking up garbage. You got the dredgers out there taking up aragonite. Those are capital resources. Now, the most common capital, of course, is cash. You see, what you have to realize, start looking at every dollar that sits in your hand as capital. Why do you think persons are constantly having ways and trying to draw it out? They have commercials, they have ads, all these different things to grab your capital. Don't squander it. Think of it as capital and valuable resource, and then you'll spend far more wisely. You see, the idea is to build and spend with your own. Build this nation of ours. Now, I had a conversation with a friend of mine talking about investing and things of that sort. And he's a black guy I went to college with in the States. And we stay in contact. And we got to the Black Lives Matter thing. And he was going on about these police, this, that, and next. I said, but hold on. These athletes are parading around with all the stuff on, right? And you got all the other persons are saying Black Lives Matter. You have 42 black-owned banks and credit unions in America. How many of these guys have their money invested in these entities? You see, they spend their money in non-black restaurants. Many persons are investing and going into non-black businesses and enterprises. I look at athletes in particular. Their personal trainers aren't black. Their financial advisors aren't black. Their lawyers, their agents, their business partners, the property that they purchase and the homes that they build are in non-black communities. There's no investing in black-owned brokerage houses. You see, and then on top of that, most of them, I shouldn't say this probably, most of them still marrying white women. See, it's just talk. Then you look at the HBCU level of low enrollment. You see, what you have to realize, that economic empowerment, that's where it is. Pursue and spend the money in your local community. Forget about Walmart and all of those, and then all the fancy restaurants, different. Spend the money in your own community. And I look at it, even you look at the 3 leading banks in America, they have set aside a couple $1 billion to invest in the black enterprise. So those persons take advantage of it, get in there and become an entrepreneur. You see, now, Investing in this instance, as we come back home, invest in land, homes, commercial property. And when I say homes, the Bahamas is a unique situation, and that's why I'm saying homes. Homes normally require a lot of outlay, but for us and future generations, get a home. Invest in a friend's business, buy shares in other business. Now, first, of course, you build your emergency account and then you begin investing. There are also mutual funds in the Bahamas. Look at those, and they usually can be as high as 5% interest. Right now, they're around 1.5% that they're paying because of the pandemic. There are also government bonds, which, of course, they like to lock us out. And a lot of times they just show you it at the last minute. And Bahamians oftentimes, well, a lot of Bahamians cannot come up with it and think about what you got to do is partnership. Then you have ASU is a good way to build capital and then use it for whatever investment intent you have. It's a method of raising capital. Now, I touched briefly on these things just for thought. But now, the idea is don't make the 10,000 stupid mistakes that I made along the way. So until next time, may the God of heaven and his Son, the Christ, bless and prosper you.